Right now, don't make any Christmas plans. That's what House Speaker John Boehner told his fellow Republicans today. We will tell you why. And next, does America have a gun problem? In the wake of yet another shooting, we're asking if there's the political will in Washington to do anything about guns in America. And later, who will be the next His Honor? Is it one of these faces or someone else entirely? We'll look ahead to 2013. Good evening and welcome to RFL. I'm Dominic Carter in tonight for Richard French. Thanks for joining us on this Wednesday evening, December 12th. We are just 19 days away from the fiscal cliff, so time is running out for both parties to reach a compromise. Are we any closer to a deal? Well, let's put it this way. House Speaker John Boehner told his fellow Republicans to not make any Christmas plans because they might be working through the holidays. Today, House Speaker John Boehner said the ball is in President Obama's court.
Presidents get elected to lead. The president talked about a balanced approach. We've brought a balanced approach.
On Monday night, the White House presented House Speaker Boehner a fiscal cliff offer that includes $1.4 trillion in new revenue, down just slightly from their original plan. Tuesday, Boehner sent back a counter-proposal that looked almost exactly the same as the original GOP plan. Later that night, the president and Speaker Boehner spoke on the phone.
The president and I had a pretty frank conversation about just how far apart we are.
The sticking point, tax rates on top earners, which the president says is a deal breaker.
Taxes are going to go up one way or the other.
And spending cuts. Republicans want specifics, but the White House says the president's already done that.
He has made abundantly clear, both in his policy presentations and in what he has said to you and to the American public, that he is willing to make tough choices on the spending side.
The deadline to avoid the fiscal cliff is December 31st. But in reality, lawmakers have much less time if they want to get something together that Congress can pass and the president can sign before the holidays. Today on the Senate floor, leaders from both parties could barely hide their pessimism.
There hasn't been a lot of progress, and I'm very, very disappointed.
The president and his allies have taken so many things off the table, the only thing left is the varnish.
Okay, how's this all going to play out, and will we have a deal before the end of the year? Let's bring in our panel on this. We are joined tonight by Nick Gorovich, a Democratic pollster and Senior Vice President at the Global Strategy Group, Vince Casale, founder of the Casale Group, a Republican political consulting and communications firm. We're also joined tonight by David Catafamo, a partner at Capital Public Strategies and former advisor to New York Governor George Pataki. Welcome all. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And I guess, David Catafamo, I'll begin with you. Is it safe to say that we're not going to go over the cliff? So does this all amount to a bunch of pandering?
I don't think it's safe to say we're not going to go over the cliff. And, you know, as a Republican, I think there's probably long-term an advantage probably to going over the cliff because I think the president owns the economy. But that'd be a very cynical sort of thing to say. And we're in the time of year, the holiday season, where I want to be giving. In reality, I think Republicans actually need to give on taxing the wealthy and move to a discussion of where we're going to make changes in entitlement programs, because the reality is they're not sustainable, and the president and the Democrats are not engaging on that issue, and they don't have to until we concede the point on we're going to tax the people who are making, you know, millions or billions of dollars a little bit more. It's not going to ruin the economy. It hasn't in the past, and it will allow us to change the discussion to one that we need to have, and one, candidly, where we're in better shape.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that the Republicans had to concede on that point. I sort of disagree that the president has more to lose on this. I think the Republicans are the ones who are going to face re-election in a couple of years, and the president no longer has to campaign for office ever again. So, you know, I think the Republicans, polls have shown, are the party that's going to get blamed out of this if there's no deal. And there's a pretty clear mandate from the American people, at least on the issue of taxing the wealthy, out of the election.
As long as the wealthy is not described as $250,000, which is a family in Westchester, a family in Long Island. I mean, if we're talking about millionaires, legitimate above millionaires kind of status, I think that's someplace that Americans can go.
From a political standpoint, I mean, I'll say with Dave won't. I think the Republicans should hunker down and go over the cliff. I think they should take the ride over. I think the short term, as long as they have the courage to do it, the short term losses will turn into long term gains for them, because either way, they're either going to in the long term, the Democrats are going to own going over the cliff, or they're going to own the solution if there is one prior. So either way, the Republicans politically
But Vince,
can't win.
if you do go over the cliff, how could Republicans, with midterm elections coming up, how could you possibly win?
Well, I think long term, the Democrats will own the fiscal cliff problems. They will own those by the time we get to the midterms.
I mean, the part where I disagree on that is that I think the Republicans are going to lose if they're being seen as the party owned by the extreme fringe of their party. And so if it depends how you go over the cliff. If the perception is that you go over the cliff because the extreme wing of the party has driven that and not allowed any kind of compromise, that's a problem.
And that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. It's long term. The long term gains of that is that they'll be able to bring that back. Short term, they're going to have the courage to be able to fight through exactly what you said, and that's the short term. Long term, I think that it sets them up in a position where they can get themselves back to the fiscal responsible party that they need to be by the time they get to the midterms 2 years from now. Okay. 2 years is a lifetime.
Granted, what you just said, but what's going to happen? Put on your hat, if you will. What's going to actually happen? Will there be a deal?
If I had to guess, most likely I would think there would be a deal. I think that we like that in politics. We like that we definitely like to see that in the media. We like to set up a crisis, and then in the 11th hour, we're not going to settle it this week. We have another, how many days to do this? So I think they're going to wait to the 11th hour, and somebody will have to come out the hero and raise the flags in the air and drop confetti or whatever they have to do. So I think we'll probably see a deal before the end of the year.
I want you guys to take a look at a poll number here, in which the question was, does President Obama have a mandate to raise tax rates on income over $250,000? You're looking at the staggering numbers there. 65% say yes, 33% say no. So apparently the president, David Catafamo, does have a mandate, does he?
And we're New Yorkers, though. And so, let's take that poll in New York, and let's take that poll in Westchester, let's take that poll in Long Island, and I'm going to tell you that probably comes out a little bit different. And look, the bottom line is that because we're New Yorkers, we already have a balance of in payment to Washington. And what will happen if we go over the fiscal cliff is that New Yorkers will be disproportionately punished by letting the Bush tax cuts go as they currently would. We'll also be disproportionately punished vis-a-vis some of the spending cuts. So there's nothing in it for New Yorkers to go over the cliff from a governmental fiscal policy point of view, and that is why I really do think that the Republicans should give on that one piece and move on, and let's change the fight, because the fight will quickly go our way.
Right.
Well, but before we take a break on this topic, do you think there's more pressure on Speaker Boehner or on President Obama?
I think there's more pressure on the speaker, to be honest. I mean, again, what I said earlier about the fringe of his party driving, he has to come out of here with a strong speakership where he controls the entire caucus in his party and seen as the guy who's the leader. And right now, there's been some stories of that doubt. The president just came off a big victory, and like I said earlier, doesn't have to get reelected again. So, I think the president's in a little more of a freewheeling position. I think the speaker's in a little more of a precarious position.
And I'd like to see those poll numbers in a few months after everybody cools. I think right now you've got a number of people in that poll that voted for the president, so they have to back what he wants to do. They want to back his policies for now. But in a few months, I even think you see those numbers nationally cool a little bit.
Is Boehner more under pressure?
I think Boehner's definitely under more pressure, because in 2 years he's gonna have to defend. He's going to have to defend the House, and
he's got a tougher job.
I mean,
he's trying to manage the entire caucus. The president basically talks to himself, which we find, which is unfortunate. So, he's having a soliloquy and is overreaching as usual. But, I hope that he comes to his senses as well and actually looks to find a deal where we actually make some meaningful entitlement reform and we get a grand bargain here.
On that note, it is time for a quick break. But when we return tonight, we will head to Albany. Is the new state Senate arrangement all about power or bipartisanship? Stay with us.